Ruben Amorim has begged the Manchester United fans to have patience and says that there will be more suffering before things get better. INEOS to have to rebuild once again. And which of these players will remain in Ruben's system going forward? These are some of the topics we will be discussing on this morning's live show. But before we get into that, please do me a small favour. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Let's try and get 500 likes on this episode. And if this is your first time watching today, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Now, I want to know your thoughts on yesterday's game against Ipswich. I want you to get in the comments section. Let me know right now, what were your takeaway points? Obviously, we drew the game. Obviously, it wasn't the result that most people wanted. Ruben Amorim obviously didn't really get off to the dream start that some of the fan base hoped. But how do you feel? Obviously, you've had you haven't had 24 hours. You've had overnight to sleep on it, right? How do you feel right now? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. But I'm going to jump straight on it. I'll give you my thoughts straight from the off. I think Ruben Amorim, fair play to him. In his style, and I respect him a lot for that, to be honest, because he could have easily just said, you know what, we're going to do 4-2-3-1, we're going to try and just scrape a win, we're going to play counter-attacking football. But he did try and play his 3-4-3 tactics. I think what I did really like, I'm going to try and be positive to begin with, okay? What I did really like about Ruben Amorim was his willingness to make substitutions early on in the game, because that was what Eric used to do. And it used to drive me absolutely crazy, because we'd all be sat here and we'd be saying, how can Eric Ten Hag not see that changes need to be made? And I was saying this at half time. I was saying, this game is there to be won. If we're willing to make changes, we can win this game. Yes, it didn't work, but, bringing on Manuel Ugarte was the correct decision. Bringing on Højlund and Xerxes, all of the substitutions, I think, were the right ones. He brought off Rashford, which was something that Eric Ten Hag always seemed to fail to do. So I was happy with that. Obviously, he brought on Luke Shaw, which was great to see. So I was really impressed with Ruben Amorim's substitutions. And that was something that sporting fans used to say, that he's not afraid to make substitutions, which was something I felt like Eric Ten Hag was a little bit afraid of, right? In relation to the 3-4-3 formation, I thought it looked decent, I guess. I mean, it's obviously going to take a lot of time to adapt to it, because it's a very different formation to what we've been used to under Eric Ten Hag or Van Gaal or under Ollie, when it was always kind of like a 4-4-back with two central defensive midfielders, three attackers and a striker, So it is a different formation. And the thing that really stood out for me is that we are going to need more specialists in certain positions. And I think mainly for me, I think kind of the wing backs is probably the biggest one. I'm still not overly impressed with Diogo Dalot. For some reason, Diogo Dalot is one of those players where there's some people who seem to think he's this world-class left back, right back, whatever position he plays in. And I just don't see it personally. And this isn't like an anti-Diogo Dalot section of the show. I'm just saying that I think for Ruben Amorim's team to work in this new formation and system, we are going to have to bring in quite a few players and we are going to have to rebuild, which I know is a frustrating thing to hear, because it feels like we've been rebuilding for the last 10 years and getting nowhere. But if you want to give Ruben Amorim the best chance, we need a proper left wing back, we need a proper right wing back. I think Amad Diallo is probably our best attacking player, and he should be playing in one of those front three positions, in my opinion. I'm not sure that Marcus Rashford works as a striker and number 9. I don't think he does. Yes, he got his goal, but other than that, he offered nothing for the whole 60, 70 minutes that he was on the pitch. I think Højlund has to play in that position just because of his hold-up play, his ability to bring others into the game, etc., which is something that Rashford doesn't really seem to be able to do. So I think, there definitely needs to be some reshuffling ahead of the game on Thursday against Bodo/Glimt, but it is probably the best game that we could possibly have coming up. I think, it will allow some squad rotation. I'm hoping to see Mainu and Ugarte in that midfield. I'm hoping that we'll see Lenny Yoro start in the centre-back position. Hopefully we'll see Martinez. It could be a very, very different starting 11 in that team. Højlund starting, maybe Bruno and Amad as the two kind of players in behind the striker, etc., etc. So, yes, it's frustrating. Yes, I would have hoped that we could have beaten Ipswich. But the thing you have to remember is, right, Kieran McKenna has been with this Ipswich team for a long time. He's been coaching them for a long time. And, they understand what he wants from them, if that makes sense. Whereas at the moment, some of these players have only, been training for a couple of days. So what I said on my match reaction last night was that all of the blame from yesterday's game is, if anything, on the players. You can't put it on Ruben Amorim. It's impossible. He's been here for a week. There's no way that he can, make the team world class in a week. It just doesn't work like that. But what I will say is this, most of these players have been playing together for a long time now. I know obviously there was a few new signings in the summer, but quite a few of these players have been playing together for 1 or 2 seasons already. So you would hope that, they could put in a particularly good performance for Ruben Amorim's first game. But at the same time, we are sat 13th in the Premier League, so I don't really know what we all expected. Like we expected Ruben Amorim to come in and perform miracles, realistically, didn't we? And some of the things that Ruben Amorim has said after this game, I think is making me like him even more. Okay, and this is a direct quote from Ruben Amorim, right? He says that Manchester United fans need to have patience, and he has warned us that there will be a lot of suffering before we see anything good. That's effectively what he's saying, right? That we need to be patient and there will be suffering. And I think that's going to be a bit of a reality check for some people, because do you remember when Erik ten Hag, he would just constantly say, we're in a process, trust the process, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't feel like Erik ten Hag was ever really that honest with in his press conferences and stuff. Whereas Ruben Amorim's literally just come out and said that you need to be patient. There's going to be a lot of suffering. And the reason why there's going to be a lot of suffering is because Ruben Amorim is not going to change his tactics. And that's one thing I really respect about him. Erik ten Hag, I know I'm comparing here, but I think you can only compare what's recent, right? Erik ten Hag came to Manchester United, obviously having played beautiful football at Ajax. He tried to do that for the first 2 games. It was against Brighton and Brentford 2.5 years ago. We lost against Brighton and then we lost 4-0 against Brentford. And then after that, Erik ten Hag went to a back 4 and parked the bus every single game. And that was it then. He never tried to play the Ajax style of football again. And I think that was partly why a lot of the fan base kind of turned on him, because they said, we've brought this manager in to play a certain style of football and he's not doing it, right? Whereas with Ruben Amorim, he's warning us. He's saying, I'm not going to change my formation. We are going to suffer. You need to be patient, because in the end, we will be a better team. And I think that's probably true, and I like that. Whether or not it will be with these players, I'm not sure. But yeah. Tom says, without Champions League football, United won't be even able to afford a rebuild. There are too many players that are unsellable unless we can sell them to Saudi. I do somewhat agree with you, but there's quite a few players who will be leaving in the summer, remember. Eriksen's contract's up. Maguire's contract's up. Lindelof's contract's up. Johnny Evans' contract's up. I think there's a couple of others that I've forgotten, but there's about 5 or 6 first-team players whose contracts will be expiring in the summer. So at the very minimum, they'll go. And then you would hope that we'll bring in replacements for all of those people. So yeah. Somebody says, if Ahmad plays in the front 3, who will play at wing-back? I would probably say Mazraoui. Maybe Dalot. I don't know. But that's the point I'm making. We need to sign a specialist left wing-back, and the transfer window opens in like a month. So that should be the priority, to go and sign a left wing-back. Because I think on the right, we have got cover. Obviously, you've got Mazraoui, you've got Dalot, etc., etc. Yeah. How many of these players do we think will actually make it? Somebody's saying that Amad Diallo's contract expires in the summer. He's got an option of an extra year, though, so he's not going to go anywhere. There's quite a few players whose contracts are fully expiring, and there's no option of the extra year. So let me go through the list. So it's Amad Diallo, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, Christian Eriksen, Johnny Evans, and Tom Heaton. All 6 of those players, their contracts expire. Amad Diallo does have the option for an extra year, though, so he'll stay, I'm sure. But the other 5, Maguire, Lindelof, Eriksen, Johnny Evans, and Tom Heaton, will probably all leave. And obviously then you'll need to bring in at least 3 or 4 new players, I imagine. And if you think of the wages alone for those people, right? You've got Maguire's on 200k a week, Eriksen 150, Lindelof 150. I think Evans was on about 100. So those 4 players alone is about 700 grand a week in wages. So you can see where the money's going to come from. You let those 4 people go, and then you reinvest the money that you've saved in wages, at least into new players and etc. Don says on Thursday we should play Dallo at right wing back and Malacia at left wing back. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, if Malacia is fit, he should start playing again. You know, he hasn't played football for years, and this would be the perfect opportunity. The same with Lenny Yoro. Like, if he's now available, Lenny Yoro has to play on Thursday for me. Somebody else in the chat is saying they don't think Dallo's been very good. CB King says, do you think Ruben Amorim will bring in a new keeper? I think Onana was probably the only player on the pitch yesterday who deserves much credit. I mean, Amad Diallo was decent at points, but Onana was our best player. I would say Onana was the best player on the pitch for both teams. If Onana hadn't have made those saves, we'd be sat here this morning probably having lost 3 or 4-1. You know, he made 2 saves that 9 times out of 10 a goalkeeper doesn't make, and he did that twice, if not 3 times. So yeah, I would be very surprised if Ruben Amorim wants to bring in a new goalkeeper, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Somebody saying, I know that some of these players won't be able to play this system. For example, Rashford, Garnacho, Eriksen. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I would agree, to be honest. I mean, Eriksen, let's be honest, is what, 32? Casemiro's 32. Like, if you watch the Sporting Lisbon sides and you go and look at the players they had, it was all built on younger athletic players who were like early on in their career. We've got so many players who are in the twilight of their career. You know, if you look through our squad, yes, we've got some decent, young players coming through, but we've also got a lot of old players as well. We've got a lot of players who, let's be honest, probably wouldn't get in most Premier League teams. We have got a good crop of young people, but you look, right? We've got all of these players who are over the age of 30. Bruno Fernandes, Victor Lindelof, Harry Maguire, Eriksen, Casemiro, Johnny Evans, Luke Shaw. Like, we've got about 6 or 7 players who are all over the age of 30 and are all showing signs of decline, right? Those are kind of the players that we immediately need to look to move on, because in this Ruben Amorim style team, you need young, fast players who can just run non-stop. And, you know, Harry Maguire's not fast, Eriksen's not fast, Casemiro's not fast, Johnny Evans is not fast, Lindelof's not fast, Bruno Fernandes isn't really fast, but he's a little bit more athletic than the rest of them. So you can see where the immediate problem, I mean, not necessarily problem, but you can see where the kind of slight issue arises, right? Let's see what else people are saying in the chat this morning. Stefan says that he watched the Southampton-Liverpool game and he says that the Southampton players showed more intensity and desire than our players. Our players showed no intensity or desire. It wasn't a good watch at all. And as I said, that's not on Ruben Amorim, that's on these players. And he goes on to say that our team has a lot of talent, but very low work rate. I'm not sure if it does have a lot of talent, though. Do you really think our team has a lot of talent? I'm not sure. I believe it. You know? I think we have a lot of overrated players that our fan base have kind of built up and make out to be world class when they're not. I think that's more of the reality. Fred says, do you think the fan base will accept another rebuild? I mean, they have to. They have to accept another rebuild. Part of sacking Erik ten Hag meant that we would have to rebuild again, I think. Because at the moment, you've got a whole squad of players that Erik ten Hag's brought in, which most of the United fan base question. So I'm sure Ruben Amorim sat there thinking, you know, why did we sign Antony for 100 million euros? Why did we sign Xerxes? Why did we sign Højlund? Like, and I'm not singling out those players. I'm just saying, you know, to have spent 70 million pounds on Rasmus Højlund is a little bit questionable. I'm sorry, it is. To have spent 40 million on Xerxes, who apparently it hasn't been brought in to score goals, has been brought in to link up the play, which maybe that will work in the end, but at the moment it's not really working, is it? So yeah. Al says, where do you think the money's going to come from? Erik ten Hag spent too much money on below par players. Well, we'll have to sell some players, definitely. You know, there's quite a few players who most likely will be moved on, I imagine, and that probably will be where the money comes from. But I'm going to keep the video short today. I don't want to go on too much. It is a Monday morning. I don't want to spend my whole morning moaning about, because it's going to be like this for a while. You know, as Ruben Amorim says, we are going to suffer. That's the manager of Manchester United warning us that prepare to suffer, and that's the reality. You know, so we've got to be patient. I said yesterday, I'm not going to throw another manager under the bus. Like, I'm backing Ruben Amorim fully, completely. The people who we should be throwing under the bus are these players who, in my opinion, rob a living. So yeah, but I'm gonna wrap the video up here, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Please make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you are new. This is